So hello everyone and welcome to this Scientix webinar titled Board Game Based Learning. My name is Marina Jimenez and I will moderate this session. With us today we have Mladen Slijvopic. I hope I said that kind of correctly. Currently Mladen is a Scientix ambassador for Serbia. As a physics teacher, he is working in both elementary school and high school in Zaječar. He has developed, alongside his students, a board game called Hembizica, for which they were given the first prize at the La Mana La Plata 2016. After that, he started using a similar approach to his class, developing quiz-based game for students. In 2017, he organized a virtual presentation about one of the board games used in his class at the LUMAT Symposium in Helsinki, and he published a paper in a Serbian journal dedicated to physics education and called Nastava Fizike. Again, sorry for my pronunciation. The same year, his idea for a role-played game based on the Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card was awarded at the STEM Discovery Week competition in your favorite science book category. He has found that using games from time to time as one of the methods can help in motivating students to explore and use different resources when preparing for class. During this webinar, you will be introduced to games which can be used to make learning fun and faster. First, the presenter, Mladen, he will describe rules and his experience with Hembizica, the board game that combines physics, biology, and chemistry. In the second part of the webinar, he'll present Hembizica 2.0, which is a card-based game, and he will show that using cards instead of classic board games can give teachers more control over the class. Last, a quiz game will be shown. In this activity, students need to come up with their own questions for the opposing teams, and both the advantages and the setbacks of this type of gaming will be shown. And finally, an example of game based on science books will be also introduced. Before we can start, just want to say that my colleague Noel with the Scientix account will be helping you with any technical problems that you may have, so please write to her privately on the chat if you are experiencing with any difficulties in attending this session. Please also remember to turn down your cameras and your microphones. At the end of the session, we will have 15 minutes in which you will be able to address any questions to our expert, but also remember that you can write them on the chat throughout the whole talk. And last thing, if you want to receive a certificate, please fill in our feedback surveys that will be shared with you also through the chat at the end of the webinar. So that is all from my side. I will leave the floor to Mladen, and I hope you enjoy this webinar. Thank you.
Well, hello everybody. I really hope you can hear me alright. My name is Mladen Slivovic and I am a physics teacher in a town called Zaječar in Serbia. And today we are going to talk about some board games. Now, board game based learning is not a new thing. You will see there are plenty examples you can discover them from themselves. And I would like to start with this game. Does anybody here can recognize it? I'm not sure how it's called in your country. It's Nejutice Čoveče, don't get angry in Serbian. And I believe it's Ludo, most common name in English. I also believe that it's very similar to Don't Get Angry. Yes. Well, why am I presenting this game? A colleague of mine has a son who has age 5, and by playing this game he has learned to add numbers, which is great. He doesn't want to be cheated by other kids, so he starts to make notes of what dices are shown, and this is beautiful. This is one example, and here I have prepared a couple of links. You can check them out later. I hope this presentation is I hope that it stays there. There are 3 games I discovered on YouTube and I like them all. I just wish I can play them. Most of them are probably easy going. You can make them themselves. And this is the beauty part. I will show you how to do it. And this is one thing I have to tell you. the reason why I have created this game. In 2014, I have just started to work as a school teacher in Serbia in elementary school, and that is the same year they decided to put a combined test of 5 subjects: chemistry, biology, physics, geography, and history, all in one. At the end of the elementary school, kids have to pass that test, and it was new. Nobody knew what to expect. Nobody knew how to prepare kids. We have to act very fast. And I was thinking about, if we try to give them grades and tests, it might go the other way. We needed to make learning more fun. And in 2020, there will be a new way of entry for the high school students to colleges. They will also have to pass a test at the end of the high school, and this is just the trouble we all have. Nobody right now is prepared for that test. We are all new into this, and we need to find a way how to make kids learn and how to make them their knowledge stay longer. So let's start with this. This is Hembizika. This is the first version of it. You can notice that the board is similar to those boards used in Monopoly. We want it that way. In fact, I let my kids, my high school kids, design the boards. Unfortunately, this is Serbian, Cyrillic, but here is the start, and there are some other explanations. Nothing very too much. As I can say, you can create your own board, and it would probably be the best. What is different about this game? Well, something like this. You drop the dice, you move your piece, and then you land on a field. You can see there are 3 different colors. Well, if you land on the red field, you have to answer a question from physics. And green, you have to answer a question from biology. And in purple, you have to answer a question from chemistry. This is I don't even know why we choose these colors, but we just wanted to make 3 different subjects into one test. And as we can see, this is the start of the game. This is where you draw yourself, put your pieces on the start. And in the first round, you have to play in the outer cycle. You have to play all around. And then when you pass the start again, you move to the middle cycle, right here. And finally, there's an inner circle. Now, why there are 3 circles? Because most of the questions have to make some standards. So there are basic standards, middle standards, and advanced standards. And we wanted to make them all involved. So, when you're playing on outer circle, you only get questions from basic standards. And once you pass the step, you can get some heavier questions. And then again in the inner circle, you can get the advanced questions. And why this idea was, well, it was new. We were awarded for this, and it turned out that my students really liked them. But we weren't completely satisfied. You have to understand there's one thing. First of all, you have to have more control over questions. Here, in this game, you throw a dice, you move a piece, and what field will you land on? It's completely random. And that means you can have one team who will back in one circle, one turn, get all the questions from chemistry or biology or physics. This is not good. We wanted to make teacher have control over the questions. We wanted to show him that he is the one who chooses what subjects will they get. The other problem we had, well, as we all know, once you gather your friend and once you decide to play a game, setting up board takes a lot of time. And classes are usually lasting 45 minutes, which means that you do not have much time to set up the board. And this is just not going so well. So we wanted to make this game in any way possible faster. We wanted to make it playable as soon as you enter the classroom. We wanted to make it, you do not lose the time when you drop the dice, then move pieces. And finally, we have to make our students more active. Now, why is this important? Well, right now, you have here is a test. You basically have a test. And students are playing your game, they're moving their pieces, and every time they land on the field, they get a question. Well, this is the test. We just make it pretty and shiny, and we make it with a nice little board. Well, we really wanted to make students prepare for a game, not just use their competitiveness. We wanted to make them really active. We wanted them to work for this quiz, for the win. So, board games are okay. And you can have really board games, and in some lower classes, you don't even have to make this complicated board. You can just create one of your own, exactly as the way you are imagining it. But once you start playing with older kids, you have to make it more interesting. You have to make it more, you have to make a better design. And this design here is created, like I said, by my students. I gave them the choice to choose the color, to choose the fields, to choose how they place them, and they came up with this idea. But, like I said, board game can be fun, but it also they have some troubles. So, basically, what do you do when you create a game and then you realize that maybe you can do better? Well, very simple. All you have to do is create a new game. I'm not sure how many of you are game fans. I myself, in my college days, played a lot of games, and one of the games really was different because it used cards. And we are not talking about those cards we play usual, we are talking about special cards. And this is my kind of answer to that. There are 3 cards. We will not use the board anymore. No, what we decided to do is to create 3 cards with 3 different questions. As you can see as well, we have red card with physics, green card for biology, and purple with chemistry questions. But to tell you the truth, why did I use these subjects? Well, like I said before, we have to prepare for the test that is coming in the end of the school. And I'm sure there are a lot of math teachers around here. You can add some color, you can add other cards, and the card can represent your subject. You can even throw out some cards. You don't have to use them all. Well, why so good that you can use cards? You remember the trouble I had when I said that we really wanted to make the teacher be able to choose questions. One of the big issues is your control of a classroom. You have to test your subjects, you have to test your students, and this is how you can do it with this game. You have the cards and you place them in starting deck, and that gives you the control. For example, if I have a student which is good in biology and not so good in physics, I will give him 10 red cards, because I want to show him that he needs to understand better, that he needs to learn more, and because I want him to become better, of course. So what can I do now? I simply put cards in starting deck. I choose the cards. I choose which question he will have, and what he does is simple. He draws a card from his starting deck, and there it is. There is his question. He knows what subject he has to answer, and if he answers correctly, I can let him choose another card from a deck, and if not, he has to answer another question from that same subject. Well, here are my students preparing cards. As you can see, they're blue for maths. We didn't use them, but we made them. And I had them, like I said, I had them design the cards. I wanted them cards to be hand-drawn. Not any reason, I just like it that way. And they bought a hammer, paper colored, some crayons, and they have basically created the cards. Well, how do you play it with cards? Well, you have to place your students in opposite. I said here they are student 1 and student 2, but you can play it teams. My experience is that 3 or 4, well, 4 is maybe too much, but 3 students in one team playing against an opposite team. That's just a perfect combination. So, what do? Very simple. Student 1 and student 2, or team 1 or team 2, get their cards from a teacher. And they do not know what questions they get, but the teacher, he does. He can place them randomly, he can place them with perfect subject, he can do whatever he wants. So, what happens is this. Student 1 shows his card, and he gets a question from that subject. And like I said before, in case of correct answer, he removes cards from desk. He has 1 card less. Well, after that, it's the second team move. They show their cards, and if they answer correctly, yes, they can remove that card. If they do not answer right, they have to wait for their turn, and then they have to answer another question from the same subject. So basically you have 10 cards and you play until you have none in your deck. And the first team who gets to the 0 cards, well, he is the winner. Well, this is us testing the game. We had to make it one afternoon to prepare ourselves to play them. We have to ask our students how do they feel about the card games. Well, they like it more than board games, it's faster. But, like I said, you can never do anything perfect, and you have to make it better and better and better. Well, what's the good and what's the bad sides about this kind of game? Well, for starters, teacher chooses questions and subject. Okay, this is good. You don't have to play them randomly. You can select what subject you will test today, and you can do it in a very simple way. You just pick and give your students 10 cards, and they have 10 red cards and green cards, or you can give them mixture. You can choose what subjects you will be testing. Well, another great thing is that there are no dice needed. For all of you who ever played a game and you ever know that once a dice falls on the floor, it's very hard to be found. Well, here it is. No dice, no losing the dice, and yeah. And finally, what I really liked about using cards instead of board is you have a faster gameplay. As preparing for class, I am choosing decks, I'm choosing cards, and once my students come into the class, they will get their cards, and that's it. No time to set up a board, no need to draw the dice, decide who plays first. We just give them the cards, they're already prepared, and this is it. Well, what are the bad faults about this? Where you have to I am not going to say that this is all perfect. Well, here's a trouble. We need to get more active students. Basically what they do right now is you switch them in pairs, you divide them in pairs, you let them play against each other, and this brings fun to the class, this brings excitement. This is okay, but there still can be, they still can do a lot more to prepare. Well, another fault is that you really need a large number of cards. Say that you have a class about 30 students, and you decided to split them into 10 teams, 3 students in team. Well, each team means he will get at least 10 cards, if not more. So that's about 100 questions, 100 cards. And the trouble is with this that soon they will memorize all the questions. So basically you have to make more and more and more. You will finish about 300, 400 questions, cards prepared, and that's a large number. If you ever try to make a pile of paper that's like 300 and more, you will know what I'm talking about. This is the trouble. So, how can I arrange myself to get less cards? Well, simple. I can place all of my questions in a book, and I just give them the card. I just give them the subject, and then I can choose the question from the book. So that would probably make you have to make more. I'm sorry. That would probably lead you that you have to make a lot of less cards. Well, still, however, you need to create a large number of questions or it's no fun. Well, this is the idea. This is what we wanted to do. We want students to create their own questions. This is the most beautiful part. This is what I really like about HemBizika. I really use this. I make my students prepare their own questions for the quiz. Well, how do you play it now? Very simple. Same rules as before. We have two teams. They still have the cards, they still show them to each other, but what happens is this. Student 1 or team 1 gets his question from student 2. So, student 2 has to go home before the quiz game, and he has to prepare himself. He has to think of all the questions he can ask. He has to put himself in the teacher's shoes. Why should we be the only one who have trouble preparing our quizzes and tests? Let the students see how hard it is. Let them show, let them learn. Well, I asked my students to do a homework, and I asked them to think the questions so they can play against each other. And I thought this was a beautiful idea until the next time. Well, it turns out that you will have trouble when you make your students create your questions for the first time. You see, most of the questions that students created, and we are talking about 6th grade and elementary school, we are talking about kids from 13 to 18, most students preferred to ask repetitive learning questions. The question you have to answer from the book, definitions. For example, in first questions they ask, define velocity. Well, it's good to know, but if he can define the velocity, it would be better if a student could actually calculate how much the speed of the car is. Or they ask him to define acceleration. Okay, you can say that you know the definition of acceleration, but let's be honest about this. Do you really understand what's acceleration? Can you calculate? Can you count it? One of the questions is what measure unit is marked with N? Well, probably the newtons, but it can go the other way. So, we have to say this, students didn't create very good questions. One of the questions, and I myself personally, I don't know what to do about it, was the question, who published our textbook? Yeah, he thought that was from physics. We're talking, well, it's okay to know that, but this is not real physics. This is not what we created this quiz about. And we have to make them use their own time better. We have to prepare them. So, what did I do now? I showed my students examples. I showed them how the textbooks for preparing final exams look like. I showed them the PISA testing that I have found on the net. I showed them this beautiful book, Peer Learning by Enrico Maze, the excellent book. Well, what I did next was I made them read their questions, and we talk about it. Why is this question good? Why is this question bad? What can we do to make it better? And trust me, it was hard work. It took about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But by the end of it, it was beautiful, because my students have finally started to create a question. Instead of asking what mass is, here's a question created by a 6th grader, what is the mass of the object on the left scale? This is what I really like. This is exactly like from a textbook. You have to make your opponent understand how the scale works. He has to transfer the grams into kilograms. It's all the physics they really need. Or this is another question I really liked. What is the volume of liquid that is poured in cylinder in liters? So you have to read it carefully, in liters. If you read here, you will find that this graduated cylinder measures in milliliters. Well, we were learning how to transfer one unit from another, and they decided to create a game like this. This is the beautiful. Well, Okay. And finally, this question, I have to tell you this. This question I have found in many books, and I'm sure that one of my students copied it. But to be fair of this game, every time you ask a question, every time, you have to know your answer. If you do not know the answer to your questions, we are considering it a fault question and you lose points. And the question in here is simple. There's oil leaking from a car and there are tracks. So question is, does the car accelerate, slows down, or going uniformly? Well, my first thought is that it can go the either way, because if he moves from left to right, he then accelerates. If he moves from right to left, he is slowing down. Well, you have to understand, in Serbia we drive on the right side, so the question would be, the answer would be, he is accelerating. In England, you will have to answer that he is slowing down. Well, these are the questions, and we will now, like I said, compare them. Oh, can we get just a question? Okay, here it is. As we can see, there are numerous advantages to cards than to board. But is it really like that? Because cards can get lost, board can be more fun creating, and what I would suggest is something like this. When working in smaller classes, in younger classes, you can create your board. It doesn't have to have as many fields as this one. It doesn't have to be blue, red, green, and purple. I'm sure there are a lot of other beautiful colors, but you really can create a board of your own. My students wanted to create questions in which you will get some bonuses. They decided it would be a good, you have a bonus in which you can use the internet to find your answer, or you can steal a question from this. You can steal a question from your opponent if you know, or you can give your question to your opponent if you are not sure that you know it, but you're sure that he doesn't know it. So you can act kind of like dirty move, but it's okay. It's all fun. And the cards here, however, give you the opportunity to choose your subjects. You can really create what question will you give them. But like I said, you have to create many cards, they can be lost. So basically what I do is something like this. I use no cards, because I only ask the questions from physics. I am a physics teacher. In my class we need to prepare ourselves for the tests, and I only gave them homework from my class. The other colleagues are still not too sure about this game, and I hope to convince them that this is a good idea so we can play it together. Right now I'm preparing another game with my colleague biology teacher, and we are looking for chemists. If you know a good one, give them my email. Well, finally, like I promised, this is a game I kind of think of for your favorite science book competition at Scientix. These sci-fi games, sci-fi books are great, and these are two of my favorites. Well, to tell you the truth, I really prefer more Arthur Clarke Rendezvous with Rama. Why do I prefer this book, and what can it do with what does it have with games? This book is one of the most perfect books you ever have when learning mechanics. This is the beautiful game. A spaceship is coming in a game, a book. A spaceship is coming near Earth, and all the things we learn about this ship are made from us calculating the speed, the rotation, the gravity in it, and it's full of ideas. However, I will today concentrate on the Ender's game. So, how do we do this? Very simple. You choose your book. This is for physics, this is beautiful. I'm sure there are a lot of books for biology, mathematics, and other stuff. Well, what do you do is something like this. You read them, a part of the book. Just like this one. Please don't make me read it, I'm already tired. Well, in this passage, an Ender is leaving the Earth. He is on a spaceship. So I read them, a part of the book, or even better, I use another student to read them, a part of the book, and then we talk about the physics of that. For example, when launching the spaceship and there was no gravity anywhere, well, this is what we ask. When launching a spaceship, in order to get a speed, shuttle will accelerate with a rate of 10 meters per second quadrant. This is not true. He has to rate much higher, but it's used for class. During the launch, will weight of Ender be? Well, what I do next is I let them answer, each for themselves, and then I do something. I let them discuss. I let them discuss the solution, and I let them choose the answer again. The better students can now point out the mistakes to the one who made them. And what I do now is that they are learning. They are learning as we are questioning. Because in the process of talk, when the good students have to try to convince the others that they are right and that the others are wrong, you can also have a completely opposite effect. Students who were right do not believe in themselves, and they change the answer from correct to wrong, and it happens. You have to make them learn that they have to trust themselves. So this is the thing I seen from this book, Enrico Mezu, Peer Learning. It's translated in Serbian like last year, and I'm not sure is it available to be bought again. It was well, it's proof like this once it's published. But the idea is very simple. You read them a part of a novel you like. You set them the question, give them 4 different options. Then they have about a minute or less to answer. And then you let them discuss. You let them discuss what will it be, what happens, what's the right question, why is it the right answer, or what you can do to make it better in this situation. Well, it's really helpful for a way, and my experience is that if more than half of your class answered correctly, they will convince the other half to switch. Not all, but they will convince another half. If, however, you have a limited few students who answers correct, well, they probably won't be able to convince many students that they are right. Not sure why is that. You have to ask someone from psychology or something like this. Well, I would like to end my seminar with 5 minutes or more. It's something like this. You have to create your board air cards. You can create your rules, but most importantly is you have to have fun. This is the greatest thing about game-based learning. They are fun. My students didn't even realize that they are learning when I made them create their questions, and that's the most beautiful. I cheated and made them learn something. Well, I hope you understand my English because I tried to speak as clearly as possible. And thank you all for listening. And here you have my email or address. All the questions, all the propositions you can ask directly. And like I said, let's just have fun.
Thank you, Mladen.
Okay.
Before we go into the questions, Noel is gonna post the survey for this webinar here on the chat. So if anybody wants to receive a certificate, please remember to fill in this SurveyMonkey survey. She'll post it again later for all the ones that you missed it here. So don't worry about posting more things on the chat. Throughout your all presentation, which has been very interesting, we've received several comments. Well, first of all, some people commented on the fact that they were developing similar games. I think Dumitra Balan, she said she uses cards for reviewing content. Zorika Milkova, she says also that she uses a similar approach for primary. And then Cristina Nicolaita, she mentioned that she created an e-twinning project called Mathematicomics, which they all follow similar ideas. Then we have had a comment from Omer Akif Ozdemir. He's kind of worried about the fact that the game is very based on just asking questions, and I think he wonders if there's any other mechanics that can make it more complicated other than just question and answering.
Well, you have to understand. Can I answer that question right now?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, great. You have to understand something like this. At the end of the year, we have this test, and we have to prepare students for test. And that means that in your class you have to forget about the old ways of testing, and you have to help them be prepared. We're not talking about knowledge. When preparing for tests, it's very important for you to know what kind of test it is. So this is why it's based on question. This is my way to help me and my students get better grades and to get enlisted in desired schools. Yes, it's possible to change the rules. It's possible to make them do works. It's how to say, experiments. Yes, it's possible to do them experiments, and in those links I have put it. There are other games you can use make it more dynamic, other ways. But the question is, what is your goal? What is that that you want to achieve? Well, right now, as a young teacher who is first time in elementary school, I want my students to do the test as best as they can. And I'm proud to say that in all 4 years so far, our students have been ranked #1 in our district. And this is what I like about it. So I needed to make games about questions, because I want them to be prepared for the test at the end of the school. And this is the only reason. I really would like to make a game like a Gravity. This is a beautiful game and you can find it on YouTube. But to tell you the truth, it would help me to explore the views use to make them learn more. But would it really help me with tests? I'm not so sure.
Okay, thank you. It was a very good.
Any other questions?
Yes, yes. We have one from Javi Alabao, and he's talking about the 2.0 version of the game. He is concerned about the level of difficulty of the questions when they are created by the students, and he wonders if they are answered by the same
Yes.
members of the team, if that's a way to control the difficulty of the questions.
Yes, this is beautiful. You have to. There are three levels of question that are decided in my country by strategy. Like I said, they're basic, middle, and advanced. And in this kind of game, it's really hard to explain your student what is basic level, what is hard level, what is advanced level. So this is kind of hard. But what teacher does is that teacher is following the game. I'm hearing all the questions, and I can say this proudly. In last month, in my class 7th grade now, I haven't actually opened the textbooks because they have invented all the questions, and trust me, some questions are easy, some questions are hard. Most of them are playing fair, and they're really choosing the kind of test, the kind of problem I would give them. There is something about playing fair. They are not trying to create too hard questions, that would be too easy, and I specifically forbid them to use any questions from competitions. This is not fair. However, I can notice that there are questions that are on basic level, that there are questions on hard level, and to tell you the truth, I just let them. Most of the students are creating the questions in rank in which they are. And we had a test recently. I created the questions this time, and I never had so good grades before.
Okay.
This is my answer.
Thanks. There is another one from Nicolina Biorica Stanescu. Well, she just commented on the fact that she finds it interesting to use them in extracurricular activities. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on using them for the subjects within the curriculum or outside, or if you want to comment on anything.
That would be great. It would be great to use them out of curriculum. You can make them create questions. You can even have a competition in between classes. I'm thinking about creating one competition next year. The only problem here is your own time. How much time do you have? I myself work in a school that is not too big school, but doesn't have too many classrooms, and it's very hard to find and discover an empty classroom. So we have to wait for everyone else to go home. And this is the only reason we are not playing it more often. But like I said before, I started with board, then created cards, and finally we are just playing. I ask question, they ask question, another team asks questions. We are just playing this kind of. And I'm sure you can involve a lot of other subjects. In fact, in 2 or more weeks, I will have another seminar, and I will explain them how it can be used to test Serbian language, grammar of Serbian language. So you can probably create your own questions about English grammar, or about history, or about the geography, or any other kind of activity you really like.
Okay, so we can see it serves a lot of purposes. I do have more questions. We still have 10 minutes, so I'm gonna go ahead and ask them. From Mahesh, he's concerned about the fact that maybe the game is slightly repetitive as it's always the same sort of activity, and he wonders how to make it more interesting, how to add maybe other features.
Well, to tell you the truth, you cannot play it all the time. Let's be honest. It's impossible to play it every day, every week, and so on. But the basic activity here is that students creating their question. This is the final rank of this game, and that is something that can never be repetitive. Because once he used the questions, he is aware that the others have learned something, and he has to go home and think of another question. More hard work is to make sure that they do not cheat and just write down questions from a textbook. But like I said, every question you have to know the answer. So yes, it is kind of repetitive, but you do not play it all the time. You keep your accent on the new questions, and every time you introduce a new lecture, you can create another set of questions, and they'll just keep expanding and expanding and expanding.
Okay. I see also that there's a lot of interest. For example, there was a question from Cesai asking if you could create this game for subjects of mathematics and physics combined, and I see a lot of people asking about combination of different subjects on the chat. I think you've already talked about this, but if there's anything
yes.
else, because people are really
Yes.
interested in combining subjects.
Well, it's something like this. Mathematics has a test of their own at the end of the elementary school. But physics, chemistry, biology, geography, and history are all tested in one combined test. And while mathematics is getting a score of 10 points at the graduation, all the other 5 subjects combined have the same results. So you can get only 2 points from physics. And this makes students to concentrate more towards mathematics and less to physics. So I have to think about these subjects that are important to me. However, mathematics and physics can be combined. You can create, like I said, you can create another color, blue, for mathematics. Again, I'm not sure why blue. I just think of mathematics as something blue. And you can use this for programming. You can make them write codes. Me and my team of students who created the original Chembisica, well, we were working on another game, and board would be like a mountain. You have to climb all the way to the top, and each time you press another level, you have to do experiment, you have to measure something, and unfortunately, I cannot say that unfortunately, but they all finish their high school, and we never got the chance to finish our game or creating that game.
Okay, I have 2 more questions. First of all, I can see a lot of positive feedback on the chat, and apparently a lot of teachers are using similar initiatives. Netka Dimoska, for instance, she mentions how this is very helpful for students to think logically and to combine different information on the same one. And one last question that I see here from Mahesh as well. He asks about creating software that can be taken out of this game, so like it online.
Okay. I really wanted to create software. I really wanted to make a web place for this game to happen. The only problem is that in most of my classrooms, internet is not functional. It's not functional at all, or we do not have computers or something like that. and there's a large number of classrooms in Serbia that still do not have a computer or projector or nothing like that, or even has a very, very, very slow internet connection. So I decided to stick to boards and stuff like that simply because it was easier for me not to wonder, will today my computer work, will I have internet connection, but it would be most beautiful idea if a website or a software game could be created.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I see
Yeah.
some people here on the chat that recommend you to run an eTwinning project. I see the eTwinners are very active in this webinar.
Well, I like to do that. If somebody likes to help me, like I said, you have my email, it's written right there. Just write me, I'm open to collaboration, and I'm really looking for someone to help me with eTwinning or any other project. This would be so helpful for me. Right now, I'm working at two schools. I have a team of students who are one of the best teams in physics in Serbia. We are actually like number 3 ranked in Serbia, which is a big success. And all these activities takes a lot of time for me. So if somebody would like to help me, I am more than glad to accept any help. eTwinning would be so helpful.
So yes, as he said, anyone who wants to contact him, you have his email. I'll wait maybe 30 seconds, a minute maximum to post one last question and then we'll close. So if anyone wants to ask one last thing, be the first one to write it, please.
Anyone?
And for the rest, remember that if you want to receive a certificate, click on the link that Noel has been posted. I see regarding the software, Mahesh is also mentioning that you could create a similar game on a Padlet.
Okay. I'll have to take his words for it for now, but we will talk.
Let's wait. I see some people typing, so I'm gonna wait a little bit more, and if not, we'll close it. Okay, I think that's it. I don't think we have any more questions. For everyone who's wondering if you can see the presentation, we have been recording it, and it will be available on the web in the Scientix website. You have the URL here on top of your screen. It's scientix.eu. So Mladen, thanks again. It was a super interesting presentation. Thank you for everyone who was in attendance, and see you on the next Scientix webinar. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thanks you for calling me, and see you all.
Bye.